In carrying on the free speech defense, the defense of free speech that I often do, I have talked time and time again about how our public discourse occurs on private platforms, and it's a huge problem. But not just that. Google, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, whatever, not only can they control what we are allowed to say, they control what we can see, right? It's two ways. If they censor you, it means I don't get to hear you. So censorship is a huge problem. It's not just about free speech, it's about the right to learn, the right to information. Back in the day, during Occupy Wall Street, a lot of people called me an activist, and I was fine with that because my activism was freedom of information, and it pretty much is to this day, and it's one of the core principles that drives me to do the work that I do. I went to a hackerspace many years ago, and we talked about what it means to be for transparency, for freedom of information. How do you describe yourself? And what I said was, politically, I don't know what is the right way to run the world, to run governments. What I do know is, if we're going to figure it out, we need as much accurate data as possible. And this is one of the core tenets of my work. The reason I would go out in the streets and live stream was because we weren't getting access to the information. I wanted to be there and see for myself, and I wanted to share that with people. Live streaming seems like a great way to do that. Conversations, analysis, honesty is a great way to do that. So I typically don't advocate for any policies outside of the right to free expression for one simple reason. The core tenet, the core principle is that we all have a right to know. You cannot withhold information from people. Information can be bad and wrong. And so that means we need to counter that with better information, with better data. And this is why I believe people have a right to express themselves. Because there will come a point where some fact or something, comes out and the government, corporations are going to say, we don't want that on our platform. And that is a bad thing. So it goes two ways. The story I have pulled up here is from Torrent Freak. Google boots open source anti-censorship tool from the Chrome store. And what's alarming about this is they say, a browser extension that acted as an anti-censorship tool for 185,000 people has been kicked out of the Chrome store by Google. The open source Ahoy tool facilitated access to more than 1,700 blocked sites, but is now under threat despite several requests. Google has provided no reason for its decision. We've become extremely dependent upon massive corporations for everything. Now, there's a huge benefit to this, right? We are still in a massive net positive, and the net positive is ridiculously huge. Basically, the amount of benefits we get from Google, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc. is like, on a scale of 1 to 100, 99% is good, and the 1%, the censorship, is bad. And because it's not everyday things that are necessarily censored. Now, this is a different country. This is taking place in Portugal for the most part, and they have censorship problems. But I believe everyone in the world has a right to access information and to know. Without Google and social media platforms, we would know a lot less. Information would travel slower. Over time, we have dramatically improved our ability to communicate with each other. This has been for good and bad. The bad is that with social media sites, people form enclaves and then regurgitate information amongst each other, and it becomes more extreme. It's like a game of telephone. There's a Simpson bit where the teachers are on strike, and Bart goes up behind them and whispers, Principal Skinner says the teachers' union is going to fold. By the time it makes its way all the way up to the front after everyone whispering, it's become Skinner says the teachers are going to fold Purple Monkey dishwasher. And that's like a famous scene, and it's an example of what the game of telephone is. And this is one of the biggest problems with social media. The left and the right, top down, whatever you want to call it, they're having conversations among themselves, sharing information among themselves, and not talking to each other. CGP Grey did a great video on this. They form enclaves, and there's very little crossover between the two. The problem arises when certain people aren't allowed to say certain things because one bubble becomes too big and becomes a dominant force and oppresses the smaller bubble. Then we have the issue of websites just not allowing you to learn. So tools are developed. And then what does Google do? They get rid of the tools. So it's worrisome to me that other countries like Portugal, which is in Europe for Christ's sake, is going to have censorship problems. China, we understand. But these tools need to be supported. Why Google got rid of this tool, I have no idea. But let's take a look at the story, and I will no longer prattle on. Well, I will prattle on after I read the story. So it says, last December, Torrent Freak reported on sites bloqueados. I don't know how to pronounce that. Blocked sites, there you go. A web portal run by Revolução dos Bytes. Bytes Revolution. I think that means the revolution of bytes. A group of anti-censorship activists in Portugal. Hey, I like anti-censorship. I bet you do too. Internet censorship is common in the country, with more than 1,700 sites banned from regular internet access for reasons ranging from copyright to gambling. Okay. The process does not require intervention from the courts, so Revolução dos Bytes decided to keep an eye on things with its Ahoy Chrome and Firefox extension. Ahoy basically bypasses any traffic to a blocked site through its own proxies, allowing the users to navigate in a free, uncensored internet. Team member Henrique Mauta previously told TF. Not only is Ahoy able to unblock sites, it can also detect newly blocked domains and feed information back so that its unblocking abilities are always up to date. That's actually super impressive. I have to question any government or corporation that's going to try and restrict information to you. Look, you have to be worried when a massive monopolistic power, be it a government or corporation, says we don't want you to know what's going on, right? Like, that's worrisome to people. And that's why it's crazy when we hear about Alex Jones getting banned from these platforms, because it's like, okay, the example I gave in the beginning, if somebody wants to tell me they hate an entire group of people and want them wiped out, I would like to know who that person is, right? So they get rid of Alex Jones. What happens now if someone sees Alex Jones in the street? They don't know who he is. And he says something, like the interdimensional beings are communicating, and someone goes, wow, is that real? Like a real thing? Like, yes, because people might believe that stuff. He's got a huge following. Because they don't know who he is, and he's not being challenged on these exact ideas, they're gonna just go with it. One of the best things about Alex Jones being on these platforms is that people were memifying him, okay? Alex Jones has a viral song where he talks about, somebody made a viral song where he talks about him claiming the frogs are turning gay. There's some truth to atrazine, a pesticide which is disrupting endocrine systems in frogs. And Alex Jones came out and said a bunch of crazy stuff, and people take those clips and they make fun of him, right? Of course there's people who believe him. There are always going to be people who believe various people. A lot of people probably watching this video believe and love Alex Jones. And some of them probably think he's a wackaloon crazy person. I'm not a big fan of his. I don't think he's credible. But you know what? You're allowed to watch him. Because there's nothing you can do to stop people. You can try and slow him down. You can try and stop the conversation, but people will find out. Now we're seeing, I don't know if it's true, but like Paul Joseph Watson tweeted out an image that shows that InfoWars searches are up like 1,300%. Oh, congratulations on creating all of this press around this man who wants to get PR attention. Now, admittedly, him being part of these platforms is going to be a massive smack in the face to his revenue, but you're not going to stop the conversation. All you're doing is making sure that the left, the people who don't watch Jones, will never hear what he says, and they won't know what he believes, and they won't know what his followers believe. Why would someone want to restrict information like that? I have no idea, unless they really want to push the culture war beyond reproach. They want people on the right isolated from the left and vice versa, so we're fighting each other. I have no idea. It's absolutely ridiculous. Let's read about why they banned this thing before I rant even further. So let's see. Google decided to, things have been going well. After servicing 100,000 users last December, Ahoy grew to almost 185,000 users this year. However, progress and indeed the project itself is now under threat after arbitrary action by Google. Yeah, they say arbitrary, but I bet there's a reason. Google decided to remove us from the Chrome's web store without any justification, Henrique informs TF. We always make sure our code is high quality, secure, and 100% free, as in beer and as in freedom. No, this is a misquote. I love this quote. When we talk about free information, we're saying free as in, not as in beer, as in freedom, I think. Basically, it's like, we're not going to give you a product for free. Freedom as in you have the right to access it and use it and things like that. I could be ruining the quote, but this is a misquote too, because it's like one is free and one isn't. Like giving free beer is an idea that you produce something and give it away for free. Piracy is wrong, okay? People are going to share, video games and stuff like that. Personally, I disagree with piracy. Like, if I make a piece of content and you steal it and cost me money, that's a negative impact on someone trying to do good work. But I believe you have a right to information, which is why there's a real challenge with putting up paywalls for news stories. Anyway, I digress. All the source code is open source, and we're pretty sure we never broke any of Google's marketplace rules. Henrique says he's tried to reach out to Google, but finding someone to help has proven impossible. Even resubmitting Ahoy to Google from scratch hasn't helped the situation. So he talks about how he tried to resubmit it, but Torrent Freak, it seems to, okay, I'm trying to find, okay, here we go. Torrent Freak reached out to Google asking why this anti-censorship tool has been removed from its Chrome store. Despite multiple requests, the search giant failed to respond to us or the Ahoy team. Let me ask again. Why would a massive corporation like Google want to remove anti-censorship tool? I have no idea. Maybe Portugal made them do it. Maybe they want to make money. Maybe they don't like the idea of people bypassing censorship. Regardless, I have to imagine it's pretty worrisome when there's a gatekeeper for the information we can get. Before Google, before social media, there were alternatives, but now there aren't. I understand there's a massive net benefit from using these new tools. Like you're watching me on YouTube right now, it's great. But the detriment comes in the past, you could enter the public sphere where debate was happening and say something more extreme. Obviously, getting on TV was harder, getting on the radio was harder, but when we were having more people in public squares, you could do it. Now you can't. And it's been this way for a long time, don't get me wrong. TV dominated for a while, and there were less opinions and less diversity of thought because there were only a few channels. Now we're entering a world where there's more, so it is good. But television channels were beholden to an extent to the FCC and the government, and we could, to an extent, control the government. We can't control what Google does. It is a massive multinational corporation, so, I'm just not going to, I guess I'm not going to understand why people would advocate for shutting people out of public discourse or for massive corporations to remove anti-censorship tools. I'm not confident about the future, man. If you've been watching me, it's like, things get worse. It seems like, the night is always darkest before the dawn, and I feel like this can only go in one direction. I don't think conservatives are going to win, and I think the people who are socially liberal and classically liberal are on the losing end in the long run. But hopefully I'm wrong. I don't know. Send me your comments. We'll see what's up. I've got one more video. Stick around.